Well, let's shift our focus now to Twitter. The social media giant fired back at Elon Musk in a letter. It says the Tesla CEO's bid to terminate his proposed $44 billion acquisition of the company is, in quotes, invalid and wrongful. Now, the letter follows Musk's declaration on Friday that he plans to scrap the deal. It is over allegations that Twitter undercounts the number of spam accounts on its service. In its Monday response, Twitter, however, said it has breached none of its obligations. It instead alleged that Musk has knowingly, intentionally, willfully, and materially breached the agreement. It also adds that the merger agreement remained in place and will continue to provide information reasonably requested by Musk in order to close the transaction. Well, let's get the latest on that fight. We're joined by John Terrett. He is in New York. Now, John, we heard that Twitter would be filing a suit against Musk this week, but nothing seems to be happening just yet. So what is the latest on that showdown between Musk and Twitter?
Well, hey there, Uche. You know, it's a mess, isn't it? It really is. That's the best word to describe what's going on. The whole thing is a bit of a pickle, really. And I think it's going to take a while before anything seriously happens. They've got to get this case together now, and they've got to end up in court. But I can tell you that Elon Musk himself has been ridiculing Twitter using their own venue, his own Twitter account. I'd like to read you now some of the things that he's been saying in the past 24, 48 hours. For example, he has tweeted out, "They said I couldn't buy Twitter, then they wouldn't disclose bot information," that's the number of robots. "Now they want to force me to buy Twitter in court. Now they have to disclose bot information in court." And this is the thing, Uche, that seems to have got stuck in Elon Musk's craw, which is the fact that he cannot get past the fact that he thinks there are way more robots on the Twitter site than Twitter is willing to admit. Now, we know for a fact that Elon Musk did his due diligence. He did all that, so he does know what their answer is, which is less than 5% and being reduced. But he simply doesn't believe it. And the reason he doesn't believe it is if he's to monetize Twitter in any way, he has to up the advertising. And of course, you can't advertise to robots. That's the basic issue that has caused this whole deal to collapse on Friday night last. So what is going on at the moment is that both sides are lawyering up with the very best in the corporate lawyer world, and the case is going to appear in the Chancery Court in the state of Delaware. Now, Delaware is the oldest state in the Union. It's 2 hours north of Washington, D.C. It's 2 hours south of where I am now in New York City. And a Chancery Court is a court that really takes as its precedent what is equitable, what is the equity in this situation, the equality in this situation, the fairness in this situation, rather than the bog standard laws. Now, they don't overlook the laws of the land, of course, but equity is the key thing in a court of chancery. I think this is going to be a very long-running court case, assuming they don't settle out of court, which they may very well do. It's certainly going to be very, very expensive. And I think that most people think that it will somehow not quite make it to the judge, that they'll settle out of court. But of course, I don't know, and we'll see, and it'll create an enormous amount of interest if it does come before a judge.
Mm-hmm. And certainly this back and forth, it has been interesting to watch, but it also raises a question about how it's impacting the company Twitter, because we saw it shares down about 11% on this news. Talk to us about the impact this fight is having on the company's image, especially in front of investors, advertisers, and even its employees.
Well, I think it's been diminished in all of those areas, to be honest with you, ever since Elon Musk came along. And I think it's also more risky even for Mr. Musk himself. I'll explain to you why that is, because he did make a final offer to pay $44 billion for Twitter. That's $54.20 per share. He said that was his final offer. It's been made. Presumably it's in writing somewhere. We think that what he's trying to do is to get the cost down. He thinks that paying $44 billion is too much, and actually everybody else thinks $44 billion is too much as well now. Now, the risk to him is that if he in any way insults the judge or is in any way in contempt of the Chancery Court of Delaware during the course of these proceedings, either in person, you know what he's like, you know what kind of character he is, or indeed if he makes any remarks on Twitter, then the penalties to him from this court could be very, very severe. That would include potentially, though I think it's unlikely, jail time. They could also seize property. They could seize stock in SpaceX or indeed Tesla. So I think he does have to be very careful. As for Twitter, well, I mean, the thing is, it's a San Francisco-based company. It's a global media giant. There's nobody there. There's nobody in the offices in San Francisco. I mean, most people are working the company from home, as many other companies are. There have been sackings, redundancies, and resignations in the course of the last 2 or 3 months. And I think the company is basically in turmoil in the face of this bid from Elon Musk. And of course, that's to say nothing about the advertising, which must be in jeopardy at the moment because advertising is down right across the board. And the share price, of course, is down at the moment very sharply as well. Uche?
Well, we do have to leave it there, John. We'll certainly be watching that closely. Thank you, as always, for that great insight. That, of course, is John Terrett joining us there in New York City.